All right, how's it going, everybody? We welcome you to episode 102. That's right, episode 102 of Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes, along with you here on Wednesday morning, August 9th. We record this a little after 7 a.m. Hawaii time. Shout out, first of all, to Spectrum Mobile HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union as well. A little bit of a subdued opening to this one. I just wanted to start off, as many of you know, I live over on Maui. And yesterday, August 8th, we're set to release this as usual on Thursday, the 10th. But the last 24 hours plus on Maui have been absolutely insane. With, I'm sure, as many of you know, it's made international news. With Hurricane Dora passing to the south of us, the winds have wreaked havoc and created some massive brush and wildfires. And thankfully, where I'm at in Waikapu, more central Maui, we've been okay. We've been largely spared, but other parts of the island, including upcountry, and especially Lahaina on the west side of Maui, Lahaina's devastated. It's bad. And so, we thankfully I'm able to record this podcast. My guys Hunter and Jonathan have been super supportive, and in contact with you boys overnight. And it's a little hard. It's tough, man. Like it's bad out there. It really is. I've got some family on my wife's side that lives out on that side. I got, it's Hawaii, right? I got friends that live out there. I got buddies in the fire department and all the other first responding agencies that have responded to the multitude of fires here on Maui. I know on the Big Island, they're dealing with some wildfires as well. So our thoughts to the good folks over on Hawaii Island as well. And so, some of the videos, the images, the reports we're getting, especially out of the Lahaina, man, are just really sad, really sobering, and really, really heartbreaking. I think we'll learn a lot more. Again, it's just after 7. The sun's been up for like an hour. And I think we'll learn a lot more here as daylight kind of dawns on Lahaina. As the fire's still going, like it's still raging, it's moving. There's still some evacuations being ordered within the hour for different parts of West Maui. And I think the massive structure damage. A bunch of Lahaina town is wiped out. Like Front Street is burned to the ground. A lot of folks familiar with that area. And I just hope and pray that the number of people injured or worse, isn't a high number. But again, we'll learn a lot more. And I know that's not necessarily the tenor of this podcast, and we'll get to some football talk, because I think it's nice, at least for me, selfishly, right, to get a little bit of a distraction. But just wanted to start the pod by kind of sending our love to everybody that's been impacted and continuing to be impacted and displaced, and hope that you're doing okay. And if you get a chance to listen to this pod, man, all the love out there.
Absolutely. We are completely with you. Thoughts and prayers are absolutely yours. If there's ever anything that we can do to help, to get the word out, to do something, please do not hesitate to drop us a comment. Shoot us a message. Please, we think of ourselves as more than just a podcast at times. And so please utilize us in any way that we can possibly be utilized. Nothing but absolute love to the Ohana over in Lahaina.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's as bad a natural disaster as I think we've seen in the state in a long time. So yeah, our thoughts, our prayers, our love, man, to everybody out there and everybody that's assisting in the efforts. And again, we take a little break from it all to record this Wednesday morning, and to get into kind of a lot of news. And of course, there's no easy transition with that, but we got some football to talk about. And I know a lot of the local football, probably some of the high school games and teams will definitely be impacted with the fires and whatnot. And And as we get football season kind of going, this is the opening weekend of prep football this weekend, with games starting on Friday the 11th. And who knows? I'm sure there will be some impacts along the way as well. All right, let's transition into the game time here on episode 102, Hawaii Football Now. It has been another seismic week, Hunter. Like, they're just from a football standpoint, like there's no shortage of things to talk about. I feel like we had this conversation basically a year ago, right? When it came to conference realignment, the Pac-12, how it was going to be impacted. I looked it up. I think it was like our first week in July episode last year when USC and UCLA, it was the news broke that they were bolting for the Big Ten. And then here we are like 13 months later, and the Pac-12 is on the brink of utter collapse. Unless you've been living under a rock, I presume for those that listen to our show, you at least are in tune a little bit with the inner workings of college football and the landscape and how it's changing. But I thought they were going to hold on, Hunter. I thought the Pac-12 was going to pull it out, but it sounds like the TV deal wasn't going to cut it for the likes of Oregon and maybe Washington as well. And so the 9 remaining teams in the Pac-12 after the UCLA USC departure, Colorado announcing just prior, earlier, over a week ago now, that they were leaving for the Big 12, that left the 9 Pac-12 teams. What was that going to be? We were planning to have a discussion on that. You figure they were probably going to look at adding some teams, probably some for the Mountain West, and then next thing you know, they're down to 4, right? The remaining 5 are out of there, with Oregon and Washington off to the Big Ten, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State joining Colorado, those 4 corner schools on their way to the Big 12 as well. And so that leaves 4 in the Pac conference, with Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Stanford. Cal and Stanford in talks apparently with the ACC, because that makes a whole lot of sense. SMU reportedly as well, also a possible expansion candidate for the Atlantic Coast Conference. The Pac-12 is clearly imploding. What this means for the Mountain West, we'll see. Most importantly, we're going to talk about it at length, but where does that leave Hawaii, right, in all of this? And before we get into some of the reports over the last 48 hours or so, Hunter, what was your kind of initial takeaway of what the heck is happening in college football?
This is a circus, Jordan. But I'm here for it. It's incredibly entertaining. This is by far the most exciting non-football stuff to ever happen to college football. It's crazy because, our entire lives, conferences for the most part have been organized geographically, and now that is completely thrown out the window. I had a talk with my dad over the weekend, and if you wind the clocks back, a year and a half, the first 2 schools to really go with conference realignment were Texas and Oklahoma. And my family lives in Oklahoma. 2 of my siblings went to OU, and we were predicting that the Big 12 was going down. That nowhere in our minds were we ever thinking Pac-12. We thought if Oklahoma and Texas leave the Big 12, they're done. Like that is the backbone of that conference. And then what do you know? The Big 12 turned into a bulldog and just started signing schools left and right. To me, they are the true winners in this new conference realignment reality that we find ourselves in. They didn't keel over and die. They found a way to structure a new deal with ESPN and started going after schools on the West Coast. And when you consider the fact that they also signed UCF, they got Houston in there and Cincinnati, they actually matched the Big Ten in grabbing coast to coast viewership. Crazy. Like to me, that the real winner is the Big 12. And then unfortunately, I don't know if it was just I don't know if it was lack of effort. I don't know if it was lack of putting a team in the CFP, because let's be honest, last time the Pac-12 put a team in the college football playoff was when Mariota was there, and that was in 2014. So we're talking about the better part of a decade without any schools representing your conference in the big dance. So I think that has a big part to play in it. I think not having any sort of big time representation really hurts your ratings as a conference. And I mean, it's represented in that lack of TV contract that they were able to, or not able to obtain, I should say. And what do you know? The Pac-12 just I think of that scene from Harry Potter when Voldemort just kind of like crumbles piece by piece and just kind of like disintegrates. That's basically what's happened to the Pac-12, unfortunately. Just crumbles into dust, and we're left with the four remaining island of misfit toys: Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State. And I don't want to presume or say, oh, this is going to happen, because anything can happen at this point. Anything has happened. So I'm kind of just in the side of, hey, let's get some popcorn and see what else happens at this point, Jordan.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's just kind of a bummer. Like, this isn't what college football and really college sports should be about. Like, it makes absolutely no sense that the Big Ten will have teams in Eugene, Oregon, and Piscataway, New Jersey. Like, that doesn't make any sense. If Cal and Stanford end up joining the ACC, which I don't blame them at this point, right? You're just grabbing any life raft you can possibly get. But that conference would be from like Boston to Miami to the Bay Area. Like what are we doing?
That's the dumbest. Here? Okay, I'm okay. We've already understood that the number next to Big 10 or Big 12 really means nothing. We've known that for a while now.
Sure.
So the number part doesn't really bug me. But if you're trying to tell me that the Atlantic Coast Conference is then going to have Cal and Stanford, which is near the Pacific Ocean, that I have a problem with. You're going to need a rebrand, fella.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, and I know it's been brought up by multiple people and whatnot, but it just, for any sport that isn't football, like it makes little sense for football in a lot of ways. I know they can figure out things. They can figure out creative scheduling and travel partners and things of that nature. And they fly all, most of these programs, they all fly charter and things like that. And it's once a week, and really are on the road for 4 to 5 weeks a year. And it's doable. But I mean, I think it really bears repeating, like any other program. Like, okay, maybe men's basketball, they can fly charter. Some of these other programs, they can fly charter. There's added revenue coming in, sure, that they're all of these schools are going to make more money because of this, latest realignment, and thus can, spend that on maybe improving the travel for other programs, the non-revenue sports, if you will. They're Pac-12 softball athletes have spoken up, right? And rightfully so. And especially those that are on their way to conferences in far-flung areas. Like it's kind of insane. Like, it's ridiculous. That they will be now forced to go play all these conference games in parts of the country that are hard to get to and also far away. Like it goes against everything that is collegiate sports to me, all because of the pure greed of just having to have more money, right? It's like a lot of these athletic programs operate in the red. Like, they lose money. That's just the nature of things. They get subsidized by the bigger university and things like that. That's sort of how it goes. But just this arms race, it's like, how much money can we make, right? How much money can we bring in? And if it's not enough, then we got to move on. And it's like, all right, it's just, unbridled unchecked spending that has led us here, and it'll just keep continuing, right? It'll just keep continuing until we have, I don't know, 35 programs. Maybe the Big Ten ends up splitting off. It's like, do they like the fact that they still have Rutgers and Maryland in their conference? I don't know. Probably not. I was listening to one of the podcasts. I forget which one it was, someone of the national reporters, but it's like, if you go through the exercise of schools that have jumped from one power conference to another, including the old Big East, like, nobody's had success. Nobody. Colorado was the worst Pac-12 team when they were in the conference after bolting on the Big 12, right? Nebraska, Rutgers, Maryland, they've all sucked since they got into the Big Ten. Missouri, Texas A&M, like, they had the one good Manziel year, right, when they went like 9-3 or whatever it was. But has A&M been Jimbo's done okay since he came over, but have they won anything? Not really. Maybe they are the best case study in all of this. Missouri, I think, had made the SEC championship game once or twice. Like, yippee, right? Since they bolted. And then you even look at some of the other schools, right? Like, again, the Big East schools that jumped over, Boston College, Louisville, they've had a little bit of a run, the Lamar Jackson, Malik Cunningham, era. But they've also like had to get in bed with Bobby Petrino multiple times to make that happen. Yeah. Some of the Miami, like, has Miami been good since they jumped into the ACC? And I know a lot of that, those Big East schools were kind of out of necessity because of the way the Big East was sort of crumbling around them. But like, all these schools, the best schools that have made in this massive jump, that you could argue, are TCU and Utah, like former group of 5 schools that jumped up. Like, Utah's definitely the best football program that made a major conference shift in the last decade. I think that's not digging a little bit deeper into there, but I feel pretty confident about that. And so it's just kind of interesting, how this all works out, how basically this is 100% football driven and everybody else just, get in line when it comes to it. And it bums me out. Like, it really bums me out that, the Pac-12 conference, this conference that made the most sense geographically, it made all this sense, history-wise, rivalries, with all the in-state rivalries built in, right? The Apple Cup, what was the Civil War, the game, Cal and Stanford, USC, UCLA, Arizona State, the Territorial Cup. I know Utah and Colorado were kind of forced rivals in that sense, but they were like, it was rich with tradition, and it made sense. And travel-wise, you had a travel partner for all the different sports, right, outside of football. And it just really bummed me out that not only are we getting all this realignment, but like, the conference seemingly it's done, and we'll talk about maybe some possibilities of lifelines, things like that. But I don't know, man. It just seems further and further that, college sports, college football, all these years that universities and presidents and athletic directors refused to give any money to players, and just sort of hoarded all of the revenue and just pumped it into facilities. And it's an arms race, and we got to have nicer locker rooms and this and that and everything. And it's like, okay, we're just going to spend ourselves into oblivion. And here we go, more just money grabs across the board. And I get it. That's the rat race that it is, but I don't know, man. It just really bums me out. And I think we're moving further and further away of having a truly sort of, not that it was ever level, but some sort of competitive playing field across the board. And we're just heading towards the top 30, top 60 or whatever, just playing their own deal. And the Hawaiis of the world would just have to go play in their own sandbox someplace.
Man, yeah, it's an ugly situation, along with the surging spending of athletic budgets are surging tuition rates. Where do you think that money's coming from? It's coming from the average kid looking for a college education, and that's funding a lot of these universities, and that's going higher and higher. It's this huge kind of wheel, and yeah, it's disheartening that we're at that point right now, Jordan. The other thing, I like what you had to say about schools jumping to different conferences, it never working out. The one exception that I could maybe see happening right now, I like that you brought up Utah. I could see Utah running the Big 12
Me too.
like
Absolutely.
immediately. Like I could see them going in and running the table, especially for football. Like maybe TCU, maybe Baylor. That's maybe a good Oklahoma State team, but outside of that, like they've had no problem with Colorado, no problem with Arizona, no problem with Arizona State. Like they are all of a sudden top dog. They don't have to worry about Oregon. They don't have to worry about Washington or USC. Like they are winning in this situation big time. I think the Big 12 could be owned by Utah in the near future. So that could be interesting. What's also interesting here is the new CFP rules, because if you remember, for the year 2024, I believe it's not this season, it would be the next season. 12 teams would go to the CFP. There would be 6 automatic bids, 5 from the Power 5 conference winners, 1 from the highest ranked group of 5 conference winners, and then the next at large highest ranked 6 teams. There's no more Power 5, Jordan. There's only Power 4. If the Pac-12 continues where it's headed, unfortunately, RIP, looks like they're gone. There's only 4 Power 4 conferences: the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC. So with that being said, they're going to need to restructure how they do that, how they strategize for conferences and teams to try to get into the CFP. All of that is up in the air right now. And I hear what you are saying with regards to feeling for student athletes and schools traveling a bunch. Welcome to our life. Welcome to our life, man. The amount of travel that Hawaii goes through on a yearly basis to just play in our own conference. I don't really feel bad for them all that much, actually. If you go to USC and you have to travel to Columbus, Ohio, and then East Lansing, and then jump over to Eugene, hey, you wanted to play in the Big 10. That's what you get. So they're basically setting up to be a professional athlete and to run a professional athlete's travel schedule in college.
Yeah, that's really what it amounts to, right? And I think for Hawaii, you know, in the non-football sports, like the Big West arrangement, even though they are paying travel subsidies to that conference, has worked out quite well, right? Like I'd much rather have, you know, Hawaii softball schedule than Oregon's in terms of just pure travel, right? Like it's for UH, it's a direct flight to San Diego, LA / Orange County or Sacramento, basically, right? And a little bit of a drive sometimes. Like it's not that big, you know, it's not that bad. But for the most part, right, that sure as heck was better than road trips to Ruston, Louisiana, and Moscow, Idaho, like the old, you know, the last version of the WAC, and wherever the heck else, with Las Cruces, New Mexico, like that was rough. That was rough. And I'm not saying it's easier, or I'm not saying it's easy, but it is a little better than those travel days, right? Like, but now if you're, you know, Oregon or Washington or UCLA or USC, right, to get to Lafayette, Indiana, West Lafayette, Indiana, like that's not a direct flight. To get to Lincoln, Nebraska, that's not a direct flight. To get to wherever else they got to go, right? Like to get to some of these other spots throughout the Big Ten, Iowa City, Iowa, like that's to get to State College, Pennsylvania. Like these aren't the easiest of travel trips. And so it's going to be rough. And to your point, like I think we will see a lot of that athlete empowerment and athlete welfare type of conversation, because you are basically making them embark on a lot of professional like road trips. And I get it, like remote learning and distance learning and not having to physically be in class and all this kind of stuff. It helps along the way. But boy, you are asking them to do a lot. And I would think fairly be asking to also be compensated for doing a lot. So that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, not just for football, not just for the revenue sports, but for some of these other sports as well. And if some of them maybe take the hit along the way, because you're talking about big budget stuff, right? Heck, Stanford, when they were in the Pac-12, was looking, remember just about 2 years ago or whatever it was, had eliminated 5 sports or whatever it was, including men's volleyball. And then it took like a large groundswell grassroots effort to save men's volleyball, and ultimately it was. But they were looking to get rid of that sport that doesn't even play in the Pac-12. Technically, they play in the MPSF, right? Mountain Pacific Sports Federation. But like that, maybe they'll make a little more money from the ACC deal. I don't know how much more money. Boy, costs are going to go way up, right? If they do get into the ACC. And then I guess kind of leads us to the next topic of conversation. And we talked about Cal and Stanford and talks with the ACC. SMU also reported expansion candidate that the ACC has had internal conversations about. It sounds like the ACC presidents and athletic directors are kind of all over the map in terms of wanting to expand westward in that nature. Some are all for it. Some, I think rightfully so, are a little concerned of expanding the footprint literally across the continent. And we'll see how that goes. And you mentioned the 4 remaining power conferences. Technically, the Pac, whatever it is, still exists. In what form or fashion or for how long, we don't know. There were reports over the last day and a half or so, and again, we record this Wednesday morning, of San Diego State working behind the scenes to create a power conference amongst basically the remnants of the Pac, the best of the Mountain West, and the top programs in the American Athletic Conference remaining, right? I'd imagine that's some sort of combination of like SMU, maybe Tulane, right? Who knows? Some combination of that. The American, which lost their 3 best programs over the course of the Big 12 expansion. And so I do need to point out that San Diego State Athletic Director John David Wicker has like vehemently denied these reports on Twitter, released official statements. Like he said, this is absolutely not true. The reports were put out there by CBS Sports. He says absolutely not true, that they're trying to broker and basically create what would be the 5th power conference under whatever banner, right? Maybe the Pac-12. The thing with the Mountain West Conference is there still exists like a $34 million exit fee for a lot of these conference members that they agreed to under Craig Thompson, who deserves a lot of credit for building up the strength of the Mountain West, keeping it together, being one of the more stable conferences in the country. Now, 9 of the 12 members can vote to override that and get rid of it, and potentially allow the conference to leave, or to allow the majority of the conference to leave, create a new conference, merge, whatever it is, or bring in maybe expansion candidates or something like that. Mountain West Conference released a statement just earlier today. Again, it's about 7:46 right now, so this is about 2 hours ago. The statement reads, this Monday night, the Mountain West Board of Directors, comprised of our 12 presidents, met to affirm our collective commitment to the conference and its future. With the recent changes in membership composition in several conferences, the Mountain West is exploring all opportunities to strengthen the league, including through the addition of new member schools. Board of Directors Chair President Garnett Stokes, what a name, of the University of New Mexico, and Commissioner Gloria Navarez will be the voice of the conference and will lead the ongoing explorations of possibilities before presenting any to the board. We are strong in who we are and proud of the exceptional experience we provide the student athletes of the Mountain West Conference. End of statement there. So what do you make of kind of the rumblings here, Hunter? The Mountain West, possible mergers, possible defections, expansion. Sounds like everything is sort of on the table when it comes to any school west of the Mississippi.
Well, the San Diego State stuff didn't come out of thin air, partner. So you can deny it all you want to, but it's definitely something out of your playbook. It's weak, it's offhanded, it's sneaky, and it sounds a whole lot like what you've tried to do in the past, namely asking for a discount if you were to leave, and then, oh, by the way, that offer was never on the table for you, and then you asked for forgiveness and said, actually, we want to be here anyway. So yeah, I don't buy that at all from their athletic director. And honestly, it's just filling my trash talking bag for the sideline whenever San Diego State comes to Hawaii here in September. So I'm gonna let them hear all of that. Yeah, they're they're kind of pathetic to me, Jordan. It's not like they could have afforded that 35 million to leave the conference a month or two ago. So what makes them think they could do it now? And what sort of TV contract do you think you're going to be able to create that Oregon, Washington, Utah could not collect whenever they were a part of the Pac-12? Like, you think you're a bigger draw than those three? No, you're not. So I don't really understand where they're coming from here. Um, it's kind of carnage at this point. Again, kind of what I referred to a couple segments ago, like just grab some popcorn and enjoy the show, because it seems like there's something new every single day. It's almost like a year and a half ago, Jordan, with the whole Todd Graham fiasco. There's something new for me and you to talk about on the weekly. So yeah, it's tough to really say. If you looked at the four remaining schools and the four remaining brands of the Pac-12, Stanford and Cal are big enough where they're probably going to get scooped up from a big conference, and it's looking like it's probably going to be the ACC. That's looking like it's most probable. I could see Washington State and Oregon State being adopted into the Mountain West pretty easily. I don't foresee their athletic programs or teams being all that different from that of the likes of pretty much any school in the Mountain West. I feel like we can hang with those guys, and they can hang with us. So it almost feels like an easy adoption right there. I don't know if we're looking to expand, but jumping from 12 to 14 wouldn't be all that different, and really all that different to our travel schedule. They're kind of right there in our pocket. So I like that. But the other thing here, and I'm going to bring it back to Hawaii just for a second, Jordan. I think Hawaii needs to seriously consider making themselves an all sports member of the Mountain West. And I feel that way to raise our value in the conference. I don't want to get into a situation where Gloria Navarez looks at, the looks at the horizon of the Mountain West and asks herself, well, why do we need a football only member in Hawaii? What else are they bringing us? And they end up making some difficult decisions. I'm more just thinking hypothetically, because it's wartime right now. Anything can happen. And obviously we would need to look for another home for men's and women's volleyball, but that's our strongest brand from a sports standpoint. I feel like volleyball would land on their feet wherever we put them, even if we ended up needing to go away from the Big West and found another home elsewhere. I think for basketball, men's and women's, for baseball and softball, and obviously for football, it would be stronger for us if we were a more unified sports program in the Mountain West to hold our footing there in such trying times as these.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it back to UH. I think that's the meat of the conversation, right? Obviously. I I'm with you. Like as much as the San Diego State athletic director has denied these reports, and maybe he's telling the truth, and that's not what they've been cooking up, but that everybody would be completely naive to believe that all schools out there are trying to make sure that they have a lifeline, right? Like that you have to at this point. It would be malpractice for an athletic director, a school president, a university to not be making phone calls, to not be exploring all possible options. Like that's obviously there are things going on behind the scenes. There have to be. It's way too volatile right now. And so my biggest fear is that amongst all of this, because it makes a whole lot of sense, as you point out, for some sort of absorption, merger, rebranding, whatever, for the schools that currently exist in the Mountain West and the wayward souls of the four schools, or two, whatever it ends up being, of the Pac four, if you want to call them, combining forces somehow, right? Like that makes the most sense. Whether it's just Oregon State and Washington State, as you point out, whether it's Cal and Stanford as well, if they don't get into the ACC, like that makes the most sense. And so now you're talking about, hey, is that just adding them on where it's now 14 and maybe a 16 team conference if you take all four? Well, is that too much? Do programs get left out? Right? Like I think, you know, the PTSD, if you will, and a lot of Hawaii fans will remember 1999, not being invited to the meeting at the airport.
Yeah.
When the schools that broke off from the WAC and formed the Mountain West Conference left schools like Hawaii in the dust. And you know, obviously a lot of those schools currently make up the current Mountain West, and eventually Hawaii was invited to the party. And quite a nice landing spot with the way the WAC was going there at the turn of the decade, or just into the 2010s. And so that is my fear when it comes down to it, because as you mentioned, Hunter, right, like the overall value of the Hawaii athletics program, what is it in reality? Like what's the realistic value of being just a football only member in this conference? And so that is my biggest fear, and my hope is, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't believe this to be true, but that university leadership, athletic director Craig Angeles, what a way to start his tenure, right? What is he, 3 months into the job? Right. Something like that, right? Are making sure that they are advocating, are making sure that they've got a seat at the table, making sure that Hawaii doesn't get left out, right? I think you've read some of the articles that have been put out there, and I think a lot of this is conjecture and hearsay, but the likes of San Jose State, Hawaii, and Nevada are often first mentioned amongst the 12 Mountain West schools of being left behind if the Mountain West decides to vote to waive the exit fee and either rebrand as the Pac, whatever it is, and go under that banner, right? Because of the Power 5 status, because of that autonomous 5 status, because of the college football playoff, and maybe trying to keep that automatic berth in there if they can convince everybody that, you know, they put enough lipstick on it that they are indeed a power conference.
Exactly.
And so that is my fear. One of the things that I, maybe outside the box, maybe a little bit too much here, but one of the phone calls that I would make if I was in part of the leadership team at the University of Hawaii would be to Chris Standifer. And you're like, who the heck is that guy? He's the athletics director at Gonzaga. Because I think you're thinking along the similar lines as you, Hunter. Like, I don't know what the appetite is for schools in the Mountain West to bring on Hawaii as a full member. 12 years ago or wherever it was when Hawaii got the invite, it wasn't very much of a big appetite. I don't think those schools wanted to all of a sudden send their softball and volleyball teams to Hawaii. And that's, and it was a great deal brokered by Jim Donovan at the time, and getting Hawaii, kind of the split deal with football in the Mountain West and everybody else in the Big West, and paying travel subsidies in both conferences. We understand that. But I don't know how excited, a rebranded Mountain West or Pac or whatever would want, or how excited they would be to take on Hawaii as a full member. It would be nice. Like, as you pointed out, I think volleyball would be a natural fit. But for the rest of the sports, I don't know how much, the league would love that. And so I think Hawaii's value would be in offering a partner for a school like Gonzaga, right? Gonzaga has been talked about at length over a number of years and from multiple leagues. The Big 12 has talked about them. The Pac-12 has talked about them before the implosion. The American Athletic Conference has talked about them. And Gonzaga, I think it's been an open secret. They've explored greener pastures, right? They've explored moving into a better league than the West Coast Conference, as competitive as that league at the top has been at times with BYU and St. Mary's over the years.
Having one successful program. I mean, literally off of the success of basketball.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And so to me, right, if you got to get creative, and again, we got to think outside the box, but it's like, hey, give them a call and be like, hey, you don't have football. Our football program's sort of on its own. Let's maybe partner up here. Let's market ourselves together. It's like, hey, take us in, Gonzaga that is, and we'll fill out the schedule on the football side, so it's an even number, right, on the conference, where we're not talking about odd numbers or something like that, right? As we see in some of it's like the Wichita State Navy deal in the American Athletic Conference, right? Wichita State's in the American for everything, but they don't have football. Navy's only in the American for football. They're in the Patriot League for everything else. But an arrangement like that to help with scheduling and everything, and it kind of makes Gonzaga an easier fit into whatever conference it is. It kind of gives Hawaii football the home. And I'm just spitballing here. Like, I haven't read this anywhere or anything like that. Do I think it's realistic? Probably not. Like, does Gonzaga need Hawaii at the end of the day? I don't know. But it'd be an interesting conversation to have. And it'd be an interesting conversation to bounce off, or an interesting idea to bounce off some of the power players within the Mountain West Conference, because I think for Hawaii, the biggest fear is that they get left behind in some sort of merger, because I think what makes the most sense in all of this is the Mountain West rebrands, they absorb, or they merge, I think is probably the better way. They merge with whatever remaining Pac schools they are, and they call it the Pac whatever, and they go under the Pac whatever banner, and the Mountain West kind of ceases to exist. They keep their history, whatever. But I think that what makes the most sense is for it to be the Pac 16 or the Pac 14 or whatever. And I just hope Hawaii has a seat at that table. That's what worries me when it comes down to it.
Yeah, man. I mean, the one thing that I'm thankful for, at least in my observation, is that Craig Angeles is a bulldog. He gets to work. He fights in the trenches. Pretty unprecedented first year for an athletic director, if that were to come down and you got to fight for the life of your school in Division I relevancy, and seeing where we would fit there. But thankfully, whenever we've talked with Gloria Navarez, she speaks very highly of Laster and the University of Hawaii. So I like to hope that we're still in good standing there, but you never know what's going on behind closed doors. So I really hope and pray that we're not left up a creek without a paddle.
That's the fear. And maybe it's the naturally pessimistic Hawaii fan in me. When you put that hat on and take off, or put that hat on and exchange it for the podcaster hat, if you will. I think there's a path there for Hawaii. I think that's an opportunity for sure. If the Mountain West can figure out a way to just band together, right? If the 12 programs can band together and stick it out, I think they'll be in good shape. But as we've seen, San Diego State, some other schools, it's not hard to get tempted by greener pastures. And if that means leaving some of these schools behind, like I don't expect them to hold up and drag everybody along, if you will, when it comes down to it. I'm sure there will be a lot more that unfolds. Hunter mentioned it earlier, like it's changing every day. I wake up, I check Twitter. see what the national reporters are putting out there as they go along. Apparently, the ACC still not moving on Cal and Stanford, still discussing. So we'll wait to hear how everything's going. All right, let's take a quick halftime break. We'll abbreviated second half. We kind of went at length here. We'll get some observations from training camp here as we barrel through the week before is game week's right around the corner. But a reminder that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union. Originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators, HawaiiUSA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since become Hawaii's largest credit union and expanded to other areas of community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit HawaiiUSAFCU.com. All right, we'll be right back here on episode 102.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on episode 102. Jordan Hunter back with you. Our guy Jonathan producing once again. Hunter, anything else kind of stand out to you as we dive into some training camp observations here before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I don't want to drop too much of a hidden bomb here if Timmy's wanting to keep this under wraps. So everyone who's a fan of this show, you are sworn to secrecy. But they are trying Solo Vaipulu at fullback. One of our mainstay kind of super senior offensive lineman who redshirted last year is actually being tried at fullback. And I think, with a few running backs going down, mainly with Najee Bryant-Lele and Jordan Johnson coming off of a lower leg injury as well, we're needing help, especially with third down and distance situations. And Solo's a big boy, so good luck tackling that dude. I'm a fan of this. We're no stranger to letting the big boy get in the mix at Hawaii through all the history. And I mean, with Nady Lau on the sidelines now, he's no stranger to that either. But I bring all that up because yesterday at practice during 7-on-7, Braden Shager hit Solo on a check down and put him in an isolated one-on-one matchup against Logan Taylor, our captain middle linebacker, and Solo Vaipulu juked the absolute crap out of him. And put him in the dirt, and it stopped practice. It was amazing. I mean, the entire place was chee-hooing for a good 10 minutes, Jordan. It was awesome. To me, the highlight of camp so far was Solo making a little juke and put him in the dirt. Fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. Nothing against Logan. Anybody can get got, but it was awesome. I have to throw that out there. It was amazing.
Look, man, there have been some big boy backs in the run and shoot era, or during the multiple run and shoot eras, right? Whether you're talking Reagan Maui or Wesley Keepy or others, I'm sure I'll the Dayton Ferrutas and Nady Lawas and all kinds of shapes and sizes, and even some of the bigger dudes, the bigger running backs, right, that have come through, the Leon Wright Jacksons and others, and I know our expert listeners will drop us a comment and things like that, and we'll get to your guys' comments in the coming weeks as well from the last couple of episodes. But makes sense. Bigger back, sixth lineman, basically out there on passing downs, which we expect there will be a lot of passing downs in this offense, regardless of what it says on the down marker. 1, 2, or 3, or 4. And if he can run the rock a little bit, we know they can be effective. A little shovel pass, a little draw play, a little zone. It can be really, really effective if he's got the feet, if he's got the hands. I just know that if you put him out there and then you put Tylen Hines out there, that is a drastic difference in size.
No
It would
DB
be
wants
quite
to
the
hit.
little thing it would be quite the combo to game plan for. So I like it. I like the imagination. I like the creativity. In part because of necessity, as you point out. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
there've been some injuries, in the backfield, and I was pretty excited about George Johnson last year too. When in his limited opportunities, I think that guy can be a playmaker, and hopefully he can come back healthy, and be just fine, whatever the timetable is. But yeah, look, you gotta be able to be creative, and in this offense, which is a run and shoot offense, which I think people like to confuse with like going 5 wide all the time and things like that. Like it's a 4 receiver offense with a back that blocks a lot. Like it is 6-man protection a lot. And you need a guy back there who is not only capable but has the knowledge as well to understand the protection schemes. Like that's big, and Solo should have that kind of in his back pocket that'll help him out big time, no matter where he plays, whether that's up at guard or in the backfield.
Yeah, no, he's certainly one of the leaders, commands the attention whenever he walks around. Everybody just definitely gets out of the way for Solo. He carries the stick. And speaking of which, no DB wants to tackle that outside in the flats, man. You better go low and hope that he doesn't catch you on the way down, because that's a big man you're trying to tackle. Yeah, and then outside of that, Jordan, it's been slowly but surely the offense is coming together. I'm watching the guys just click ever so smoothly, kind of one day at a time. I've been impressed. That guy Carson Papunu, actually, he's wide
Mhm.
receiver number 83. Actually from Kamehameha Maui.
Yeah,
Um,
he's from Lahaina.
yeah. I think he went to Weber State, transferred back. Very high on him. Very high on him outside of Nick Senecal, Walthall, and Jonah Pinoke, Kwali Nishigaya. I'm looking at Carson to get into that rotation as well. He's really getting off of the blocks really well, getting off the jam, and strong hands. So I'm liking him on the outside. So um, still figuring out depth at the receiver position, but I think I've talked on the pod at length before about using a number of guys, and I think Carson could be one of those mainstays in this rotation.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I coached his older brother, Cameron, when he was at Kamehameha Maui. He was actually a police officer with the Maui Police Department, and I'm going to imagine was probably working some long hours last night. And yeah, Papunu's Lahaina family here on Maui. It's pretty cool to hear. He was a playmaker, man, in high school. I really liked him. Dude can go get it with some good speed out there as well. Before we kind of wrap things up, any other tidbits, Scuttlebutt, you'd like to share on some of the observations, or shall we wrap it up here?
Yeah, I think that was about it. I ran out of all of my positive things to say. Yesterday was actually pretty sloppy. A lot of the wind that affected all of Hawaii definitely affected Hawaii's football practice yesterday. Punts were going everywhere, throws were getting everywhere. Timmy was giving it to the QBs. So yesterday could have been better. And I'm sure that they're going to tighten the screws before the end of camp.
Yep, they're going to need to, right? And hey, you got to be able to throw in the wind. That's part of the deal. And maybe a little taste of that with the practice up at St. Louis over the weekend as well. All right, we'll leave you with this. Did want to put out the word that University of Hawaii Athletics, they're selling the H Pass again, which basically it's $240, and it gets you to all the ticketed events: football, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's volleyball, and baseball. All 6 of the on-campus sports that charge for admission. And it's $240 for the entire school year. They're on sale now through August 13th, or while supplies last. Again, those unfamiliar, it's an annual pass that provide access to one non-premium ticket in select areas for UH Manoa sponsored regular season home football, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's volleyball, and baseball events, subject to availability for high demand games. They've got a process they go through for some of those high demand games. Diamond Head Classic not included in that. Those technically aren't Hawaii men's basketball home games, nor any NCAA tournament or hosted events as well, not included in that. But for $240, man, there's a lot of home games that you can definitely check out, and it's like the best value. So if you're interested, if you haven't already gotten season tickets, it's different than the season ticket setup and things like that. Season tickets, obviously, you can choose where you sit and things like that. The H Pass does come with certain stipulations on sections that you're in and things of that nature. You can get all the information you need at HawaiiAthletics.com on that as well. All right. Any final thoughts here, Hunter, before we head out?
Yeah, just I still in thoughts and prayers to everybody over on Maui. You're not alone. We're with you guys. And yeah, if there's still opportunity to get out, get safe, stay healthy, please do everything in your power to do so.
Yeah, for sure. And again, thanks to you boys. Appreciate you guys kind of keeping the schedules open. And you know, it's always a highlight of my week to get to talk some UH football with you guys. And as always, big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union as well. All our best to everybody affected by the storm and the fires and the wind, whether here on Maui, the Big Island, or elsewhere as well. That'll do it for us. For Hunter, for Jonathan, thanks again for producing this thing, man, and cutting it up and putting it together. We'll see everybody next week, man. UH football, just a few weeks away. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.